Hello everybody and welcome to my brand new lecture series. Being that my artifacts course centres around items of interest and profiles describes individuals, I thought there was a bit of a niche in this syllabus to cover the numerous mobs, cannon fodder, and in some cases apocalyptic hordes that occupy the worlds we look into. Unfortunately, the faculty couldn't give me a lecture hall to present this course, so online it is. Not so much of a problem given that's how everybody seems to be working nowadays anyway, so let's kick off by looking at a pretty interesting group of creatures from Terraria known as the Antlions. Antlions are a group of hostile creatures native to the deserts of Terraria and consist of 3 or 4 distinct forms, depending on your interpretation of them. Known antlion types include the stationary creatures simply referred to as antlions, the antlion larvae, the antlion chargers, and the flying antlion swarmers, as well as their egg clusters. While sometimes found on the surface, most antlion forms seem to primarily dwell and create their nests underground, which they access via deep canyon-like openings. While frequently thought to be a creature of fiction, antlions are in fact a real lineage of insects native to Earth, and whilst being far smaller than their Terrarian variants, they share many similarities in their appearance and behaviour. Because of this, it's reasonable to utilise the Earth-based insects as an analogue to fill in any unknowns about the Terrarian creature. Using this logic, we can be fairly confident that all antlion forms belong to the same species, and that they are simply different points in their life cycles. From the nature of their nests, we can infer that larvae will hatch from their eggs into the underground desert and potentially feed on smaller creatures until they grow larger, at which point they will begin hunting larger prey up to and including humans. When having grown sufficiently large enough, it's likely that the antlion chargers, as they are known, will cocoon themselves and emerge as antlion swarmers. Interestingly enough, on Earth, antlions are considered larvae until they metamorphose into this flying form, at which point they'll lay eggs and complete their life cycle, but official documentation states that Terrarian antlions hide in the surface sands to defend their eggs whilst nesting, indicating that it is not the antlion swarmers that lay eggs, but the antlion chargers, and that the swarmers merely exist, potentially as further protection for the next generation. Another way to interpret this statement, however, is to consider that the swarmers do indeed lay the eggs, as might be expected, and mature chargers are tasked with protecting the nest just prior to their metamorphosis, when they become too large to move. A variation of this idea is that maybe not all chargers become swarmers at all, but a few remain oversized larvae to become stationary protection for the nest. No matter how the Terrarian variants are looked at though, it is clear that they are far more social than their Earth-based cousins, which appear to be much more solitary, foregoing the large apparently shared nests seen on Terraria. This is further supported by the fact that where Earth antlions dig solitary pits to trap prey in, throwing sand at their victims similarly to how surface Terrarian antlions spit at foes, the antlions in Terraria tend to have one funnel-like entrance, again similar to the Earth ones, only on a much larger scale, which leads to a network of tunnels linking the whole underground desert. So prevalent are the antlions and their nests in Terraria, some have even suggested that the underground desert is not riddled with nests, but instead one giant one in its entirety. A concept such as a supernest of sorts invokes the imagery of a termite or ant's nest, where each individual is part of a single colony led by a queen or other type of leader. However, there appears to be little in the way of evidence for an antlion queen, and it appears the species has become almost communal, sharing resources and protection but remaining individualistic. This sort of behaviour probably evolved as a defence mechanism in response to an ongoing threat, and may indicate a trend towards becoming a collective hive of sorts in the future, although at this point they still have the option to revert back to being completely solitary should the evolutionary pressure cease. An interesting point to note is that the stationary variants, which spit projectiles at interlopers, are seen as a completely different form by most Terrarians, despite likely being a charger, and are referred to as simply antlions. Because this form exists on the surface, where most of the species lives unseen beneath the sands, it is likely that they were the first to be discovered, and were named without consideration for further variants. Once the other forms were uncovered, it would have been unlikely that a majority of people would have even encountered them, and would have continued referring to the variant that they were aware of as simply antlions. Being able to infer so much about the antlions using their Earth-based analogues is a rare and exciting opportunity, as there are frequently many questions left about the individuals and creatures that occupy Terraria, even after extensive speculation. A hardy species of desert dwellers, any variant of mature antlion can become a dangerous threat if not managed correctly, and few are able to escape the swarm in the depths of the underground desert. As such, the antlions have been given an individual rating of potent and a collective rating of overwhelming. So a pretty interesting topic for our first lecture. Well, for me at least. I have this fascination with these hive-like collectives and bug life cycles, and sure, these things might maul you to death if you fall into their pits, but at least they won't burst out of your chest. If you enjoyed this new format of lecture, then please let me know by liking this session and subscribe to the lecture series for more. If you want to support the course further, then become a patron or channel member. Now, as always, have a great day and try not to fall into any holes, because you never know what's down there.